going on,
What's
bro?
going on, Drew?
Back again, man. Where we at today, bro?
Today we're at Loco.
Java. I would pronounce it Java, but hey, man, to each his own.
Yeah, you know, I got a little bit of Spanish roots in me today. I had to wear the Costa Rica
This guy's
sweatshirt.
hilarious.
So that's what we're doing today.
This guy swears he's Spanish, man. His last name is Italian, but he swears he's Spanish. What, you go with the cappuccino again today?
Well,
right?
with the cappuccino, we got a heart in there, which we love. We love a little bit of creativity.
Okay.
This is why we created this podcast in general. But yeah, man, I mean, let's take a sip and let's kind of let them know as to what episode 2 is going to be about.
Yeah, so episode 2 is a fun one. It's something that I'm super excited about. So today, guys, we're going to go into it. I'm going to interview my guy, my co-host, Nick Valet. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about his upbringing, his background, and you guys see him so much on social media. We'll talk about why he does it, right? Why he does what he does. You see him inspire so many people, and he gets so many people to get out of their comfort zone. So let's get into, we're going to get into that. But Nick, how you feeling, man? This is your second week in the DMV area, bro. How are you feeling? How are you adjusting? And then you also did something this weekend. So I want you to tell the people kind of about what you did this weekend as well.
Yeah, appreciate the intro, the kind words there, my guy. It is crazy what has brought us here, right, and what's going to become of it as we're already taking action, right? So I came back to grab the car, right, because previously I was living in Arizona and I didn't have a car.
Right.
And, you know, through that, I was like, okay, you know, in these states, I was living in New York prior where you didn't really need a car in the city.
Yeah.
You need a car.
Right.
So especially when you guys are going to be working on the weekends, you know, there's got to be times for me to, you know, unwind and do other things that we like doing. Right?
Absolutely.
Like taking photos, going to coffee shops like this.
Yeah.
So I went to go do that. And,
Right.
you know, just like you, right, when we're in our hometowns, when we go back, we want to get as much stuff done as possible during that weekend.
Because you're not there often.
No.
Right.
Exactly. You're not there often. And one of the main things I realized going back was that I need to tell my story more, right? Because some of these kids that are following me on Instagram that have seen me like grow up and stuff,
Right.
they don't know what I'm doing. Like they don't know that I made the move to Queens, then I made the move to Arizona, then I made the move to DC. You know, they don't know all of this at this age, right? So there's a lot of stuff that, you know, falls on me that I need to take extreme ownership of in telling that story.
Right.
But it was great just to go there, right? I ran a relay that we talked about previously in episode 1 with Beth, my dad's girlfriend. Crushed it.
Yeah, you did,
really
bro.
good.
You did.
Yeah, it was funny too. Let's talk about that for a half second because it's not like a marathon, right? Like a marathon is like you're running your own race, and at the end is when like you see who really has it, right? Who has the most left in the tank, who didn't like gas out. This one, bro, I had a relay for like 5 miles. I'm like looking like a freak compared to everyone else, like passing people. They're like walking and stuff like that. It was more laid back.
Right.
It was actually the last one of their like 20 years running that stuff.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. It was cool. They had signs there like the motivational mile and stuff like that, which is always cool.
It's always cool to see that stuff. We just, you know, we talking about going to Philly, right? We ran the Philly Marathon together, and that was the first marathon I was in where so many people were there supporting you. So I can only imagine, right, when, you know, this is their last one, they've done it for 20 years. I can only imagine the amount of people who came out there just to support you, right? Like it's a smaller event, but still those people, I remember like in those tough times, man, like when you're running, seeing those signs, like, yo, keep it going. Like some of the signs are funny and whatnot, you know, they just keep it lighthearted and allows you to kind of get through the race. So
absolutely. Man, shout out to the speed boost sign. There wasn't many people there, but there was one lady that had like a speed boost thing. I tapped it.
Yeah.
It was clutch. It was clutch with the mushroom. But I mean, it's a bigger picture, right? As to why we run. We run like we're all connected through running, but like there's emotion behind it, and there's always a bigger purpose behind the race itself. Yeah. You know, not just being a race, being an experience at the same time. Right. So beautiful. You know, on top of that, right, I've had goals set to myself. You know, I ended up talking to someone on the bus. You know, I ended up shooting my shot, it was great, right? It was great, and we had a little coffee date like this as well. Right. So just like getting out of your comfort zone and continuing to, you know, push those boundaries is the staple that I wanted to set that weekend. And that's what I did.
That's huge, man. And congrats for that, because I know going up there and running a half, the relay, you know, with Beth was a big thing for you to do. We talked about it a lot. And, you know, I can only see like the growth that it takes to do things like that and then to go up there, right? And then you talked about telling your story a little bit more to people, so the people back home, like, what do you think their perception is of you? Like, do they know any of the things that you're doing? Like, as they have to see some of your social media, right? But like, do they understand like how in depth you are to some things, or like what do the people back home think of Nick Villegas?
It's a good question, right? Like I don't, because I've been moved through so many things, right? Like I started out like gaming, and like all the guys at school were like, "Yo, this kid is like the best Fortnite gamer," right?
Yeah.
And like they've been through so many different things. Like I don't think people have even caught up to like he was doing real estate sales. Like that's super confusing. Right. If you don't really sit down and tell people what you're doing, like as to real estate wholesale.
Yeah.
So then from there, it's just like, oh, now straight like content agency, like what do you do? Because my clients aren't like saying, hey, like Nick is doing this 24/7, right? And I don't even go out there and say that all the time, right? So that's something that I could be doing a better job with.
Right.
And with that being said, that's something that I need to keep up with. And the main thing as to why with my family, right, as to why I needed to run that is just because being away so much has gotten me to realize, especially in Arizona, right, that there needs to be, communication. There needs to be more of an effort on my side of things.
Yeah.
So that was accomplished this weekend.
That's awesome, man. And you definitely felt like that, leaving New York, coming back on Sunday. You're only there for a couple days, but did you feel like you did make that like commitment and you were able to accomplish that like when you left? Like for what you set out, like your goal going up to New York, right? Do you feel like you accomplished your goal of why you went up there when you left on Sunday afternoon?
Absolutely. Like I set an example of the change I wanted to be. I had a great dinner with my dad. It's funny. I've been thinking about oysters and stuff. I got like a dozen oysters.
Yeah.
Which was really good. Just had good conversation. Just really did the right things there.
That's
right.
Awesome.
That embody me. So just excited. I was excited to just come back to this energy, right, and just to harbor this and continue to push forward with our mission.
Yeah, and you've done so much, and I admire you here because you really do like resemble. For people who don't know, Nick he's went from living in his hometown to moving to New York, to moving to Arizona, to moving to DC within 8 months, right? Like maybe less.
That's actually crazy to think about. I need to reflect more about because everything happens so fast.
Yeah.
Bro. Everything happens so fast and it just feels like very right. So I don't think about that stuff, but yeah, I did do that. So I went to Queens, came back to the hometown, saw my energy like going back into old habits and depleting. Boom. Why not go to Arizona, right?
What was the original reason to move to Queens? Like what brought you to leave your hometown, right? Because like for a lot of people, I think there's like some statistic out there, don't quote me on this, it's like 80% of people like don't ever leave their hometown.
It's crazy, right?
Like 80% of Americans never leave outside of like a 10, 20 mile radius of their hometown. So
yeah.
So what chose you at 21 years old to just say, I'm out, like I'm leaving my hometown, I'm going to go live in Queens? Like
yeah, that's a good question, bro. I mean, to backtrack a little bit, right, is to like my hometown, Warwick, New York, right? It's a nice place. It's a comfortable place, right? Mm-hmm. And there isn't so much to do there, right? There's a drive-in, you can go bowling and stuff like that.
Right.
But everyone kind of knows each other within that environment.
Okay.
And I remember, working in the restaurant industry, that's where I worked, and I just knew that, okay, I'm going to continue to do this because there's a bigger purpose. Yeah. I'm going to stack up cash and eventually do something. I didn't know what it was. Like I still didn't know what it was, but creativity follows commitment.
Yeah.
Right. So through that, I remember, dude, every single time, like I wanted to go to the city because I wanted a faster pace. I wanted to get pushed harder and I wanted to get held accountable, like through the location that I'm living in. Right. And I had an idea to go up with my friend, right? And some stuff happened with him, so that didn't end up working out. But that wasn't going to stop me because I have told everyone in the restaurant so many times, bro, month after month. I was creating content on TikTok and all this stuff, and I was just telling them, yeah, like, I'm going to move to the city. And they're like, all right, yeah, you're going to move to the city.
Right.
There's one time where I just finally took that leap and moved on because I knew that going out of there, I didn't know what was going to happen. Like I didn't have every move planned out, but I just knew that going out of there was going to change me as a human being.
Right. I talk a lot about like negative energy and how contagious that is, right? I make fun of some people. I'll say like they're an energy vampire, right? They just suck the energy right out of the room. And you know, it sounds like to me like what you were dealing with was like the people that were in your life, they kind of just were doing that for you, right? Like Warwick was really like a place that just caused you to kind of lose your energy, lose your focus. And then you touched on it a little bit, but so you went from New York. All right, I get that. I understand why you went there. You want that faster pace. You want to be accountable by the environment that you're in, which is a huge point to people. Like, don't even, so talk about that for a second, right? The environment that you're in, how can that affect like your mood, your energy, what you're doing, like your pace of life?
So much. I mean, sometimes you need a shock, right? So I needed a shock because everything becomes mundane, everything becomes the same, and you start to get really comfortable. And you don't even, that's the crazy thing, is you don't realize that you're not growing. You're doing the same thing, you're collecting the same paycheck, you're meeting the same people, right? Like, don't get me wrong, like this could come off cocky or whatever, but yeah, I could have taken over that place. I could have became the manager, like easily. Like I had a great relationship with everyone there. Right. But it was too comfortable. And the idea of going to another environment is what I always like to say too, is there's different chapters, right? There's different you, especially like being the age that I am right now. I could take things that, okay, this is a weakness of mine, right? In New York, this is a weakness of mine. But I moved to Arizona, that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And you could solidify it through the locations. And that's what I started to do.
Okay. So then what habits when you moved from Warwick to New York City, what habits started to change that you saw immediately?
Immediately was more accountability, right? Like I had the opportunity to make more decisions. It wasn't like I could lean on my father for anything at all, right? So you immediately grow up in that moment when it's like, yeah, make sure you got the keys, make sure you got everything for work. Like you got to be to work on time. It's a representation of you. It's not like anyone else has any jurisdiction over you, which is my favorite thing. And that's why I encourage everyone from back home to get out and go on your own, because that's when you truly learn who you are as a person.
Because that is such a big thing that Nick just said there, is that so many people rely on somebody else, or they rely on their job that's paying them, $50,000, to where they're not going to fully commit to what they want in life. And they're like, I have this job that doesn't make me happy, but it pays the bills, right? I go home, I'm upset, I'm not really the best father, I'm not the best husband, I'm not the best boyfriend, but it pays the bills, right? And they use that as a crutch, kind of like how you were saying, how your dad was in your life. And, I think that's, an issue, I'm not saying an issue, but it can be an issue for a lot of people, right? Where people don't go chase after their dreams. And you're a guy who just was like, dude, I'm sending it to New York, right? Like I gotta get out there. So you talked about the good things about going to New York, but what changed to make you move back to Warwick, right? Because, you just talked about all those, the paradigm shifts that you had and like the progress that you made. So what would make you go back to that lifestyle that you were so afraid of staying in, just a few months after?
That's a really good point, right? And it does, it's a good question, bro, because it comes with preparation, right? Is I didn't prepare the best for when my lease was up. I had to, I wasn't looking at other places in New York.
Yeah.
That just wasn't the thing, right? Because I tried something and obviously I learned lessons from that, right? People know that's another thing, right? Like Fortnite, then up for grabs, right? Shout out to Brian, shout out to Lynx, because in the city, that's what originally got me down there, right? It was my friend Lynx that I met serving. And that's why we have this camera here. And Andrew's got this beautiful camera as well. And that's the reason that, okay, yeah, we're going to live in Astoria. Right, that was the sole reason there. So when my lease ended up, due to just lack of preparation, I came back. And another reason was I didn't want to be locked anywhere, right? Like I didn't want to be locked in anywhere at like a year lease or something like that. Right. So I was like, okay, let me go here, because I have an idea of where I want to go. Like I wanted to go to Arizona. I just didn't know how it was going to happen at the moment. But I mean, it's the power of like just repeatedly telling your subconscious something, right? Just to touch on it really quickly is when I went to the city, and touching on proximity, right? I went to the city. I was surrounded by the same people because I was still serving, guys, right? But I had that awareness now that I didn't have previously, that I was learning over time,
Right.
as to, okay, this isn't my tribe, right? I can enjoy the time here. But that's when I really started to focus on like meditation and emotions in general. I always tell this one story where it was like, I dropped the sugar caddy, you know, like those sugar caddies with all like the sugars inside of them, and sugar went everywhere.
Yeah.
And bro, I didn't get pissed. I just stood down and I just started picking it up, right?
Yeah,
Like
what
you
are
have
you
a
gonna do?
decision to make right there. And that's when I really started to learn about like who I was as a person through that, and being alone, you know?
Yeah, so really just like being by yourself and not having anyone else to lean on. And so you're like, I don't want to get into another lease, right? I'm not signing like a 1-year thing here in New York. You didn't take the preparation needed to stay there.
I was with 3 random roommates, right? Let's keep that in mind. I moved in with 3 random people, and one of those people was actually doing wholesale, and that's how I learned of Pace Morby, which is crazy.
Wow.
Right? So then go through that, and it's
crazy,
such a
bro.
crazy scenario, because like if you had an entrepreneurial mindset and things like that, you know of wholesaling, right? You may have seen Max Maxwell, you may have seen other people, but you maybe have never taken that leap into it. I always knew real estate was something that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But then when I saw Pace Morby, it was like an introduction into a whole nother world. But yeah, man, I mean, July, lease ends, I'm out, I'm back in Warwick.
Okay. And then what started to change, right? Did you start to fall back into those same old habits that you were running away from?
Exactly. Yeah. Like I started to lean on more. I started to take my foot off the gas because I didn't see everyone walking every day. I didn't have the opportunity to just walk to the gym every day. I had to get in my car now. I had to drive the car. Oh, fear of money, paying for gas, things like that. Like little stupid things that are in your mind, right? There was all these
playing mind games with you.
It was just roadblocks. But ideally, the same mindset was there.
Yeah.
Right. Like I didn't go out for distractions. I didn't seek any of that. I knew there was something bigger, and I was waiting for that opportunity to jump on. And it came around the time I had a conversation with Kevin Cho. I realized I was waiting for something, and I didn't need to be waiting for it. He said, "What's stopping you from moving to Arizona?" I thought about it. Nothing. Right?
Yeah.
Nothing at all. So through that connection with, Daryl, shout out to Daryl and Logan, I was able to live in an RV for 3 months. And that was an experience, man. But we shipped our stuff. I freaking got an airplane ticket, and I didn't really look back at all.
So you just said, listen, you had this conversation. Can we talk a little bit more about that conversation with Kevin Cho? He tells you like, hey, you're not, like, what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
And like what was that? What was that shift in your mind? Like what happened?
It was all so that was the Queens mentality versus my Warwick mentality.
Okay.
Right? And with that being said, is the Queens mentality was like, yo, just, you're not waiting for anything, right? Those paradigm shifts already happened.
Right.
And the Warwick mentality was like, hey, man, get some more security. How are you going to get figured out for a lease? All these questions, right? All these questions that get brought up that really don't need to be answered.
For sure.
At all. And that triggered something in me. I made an Instagram video about it. I remember there's a red umbrella. I was in like a red thing. There was the devil on my shoulder. There was the angel on my shoulder. And it's funny because I create content about things, and that stuff actually helps me. And that's like the reason as to why you guys should be creating content, is to, when shit gets tough, is to talk about it and let it be known, right? So you can double down on things and hold yourself accountable.
Dude, that's a huge thing, right? You literally didn't really have a plan. We're just like, I want to be in, like, it sounds like to me that you really just were like, I want to be in the proximity of people who are doing the things that I want to be doing, right? That's why you ended up moving out to Phoenix, because it was like, this is what I wanted in New York. This is what I wanted in New York, but I didn't get it in New York. And then you move. Then that's ultimately, because if you got it what you wanted in New York, you most likely would have because if I want something, I'm making sure my lease is ready. I'm making sure like I'm not leaving this place. Like I'm grinding. I'm getting all my stuff together, right? So you're like, it wasn't important enough to you to get that stuff right. So you're like, you know what, I'm just going to go back to Warwick, right? And then you started going down this path. You had this wonderful conversation with Kevin Cho, and shout out to Kevin Cho, man, like, because, you know, yeah, dude, one, he's killing it, but two, like, he really changed a lot for you. Like that one, you never know what conversation you might have with somebody that might change your mindset and change where you're at in life. And it seems like that really had a huge impact on you.
Bro, it was one question. Said, what's stopping you?
Yeah.
And that just like triggers, like, that's all you need to say. Just like how we learn in sales, like, what happens if you don't sell? Like, there's these questions that like people need to hear to, you know, have that conversation with themselves in their brain.
100%.
And speaking of it, right? Like, I've had some friends reach out, like, yo, you're paying $950 to live in an RV, and there's all these limiting thoughts, right? And you cannot get caught up in that, because if you believe in yourself, the money literally is not an issue. Money comes to us frequently and abundantly.
Yeah,
we know that. So
absolutely, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was beautiful, and I'm really happy that you caught that, because I didn't catch it entirely, right? New York, it was the hustle that I wanted. I love New York, right? I love Queens. I love the city. I love everything about that. But
City
the proximity, City Boys is up. The proximity, though, it just wasn't there, right? And that's what I got in Arizona. But the proximity was a little awkward because I didn't have a car, and I was like 30 minutes out from everyone that I ever wanted to go to. So Uber was on speed dial.
That was in Arizona.
Correct.
Okay. So you get out to Arizona. Yeah, let's rewind that real quick. So you get out to Arizona. Kevin Cho calls you, right? You have that conversation. You're like, I'm sending it. And this was right after the marathon. We ran a marathon at the end of November, the Philly Marathon, and this guy was like, "Yo, I'm leaving in 2 weeks."
I ran the marathon, and I left.
He's like, I'm going to Arizona, like right before Christmas. Like, this dude's crazy, right?
That's
he's
actually
like,
a good point.
He's like, I just want to be in this proximity. Like, this dude, like, you know, and you know, we can get into that, right? Like, you were like, I just want to get out of work so bad that I'll leave right before Christmas, you know, because that takes a toll on you mentally, right? Like, you're not spending Christmas with your pops,
for sure,
you know. And I know that was tough on him, you know, for you not to be in the area for that, right? And you just
it's like a cold shoulder sort of thing,
for sure.
And it's not, obviously, looking at it, right? That's on a piece of paper. It looks like that.
Yeah.
It's something that I had to do.
Right.
Time was up. Right. And I had to make that decision. Okay, this is a nice 3-year lease, ready to get settled in and just take action. Because if I don't bite the bullet now, the bullet's going to bite me. Yeah.
Damn. That's tough, man, because that's such a tough decision to make, especially for a 22-year-old, for anyone at any age, really. Yeah. But like, for you to make that decision and right before the holidays, which is super tough, and
crazy,
you go out
bro.
there, yeah, bro, it's crazy. It's crazy. Like, I remember after the marathon, we all like went to go grab food, and you know, Nick was like talking to my family, my parents about it, and they were like, what? Like, probably everyone was telling them, like, yo, like, what are you doing, man? Like, but it's beautiful. Like, this guy, he believes in himself so much that it doesn't matter, like, what other people say. Yes, he's going to listen to the people that guide him and the people that he looks up to, and he respects everyone's opinion. But ultimately, he's just like, he's betting on Nick Vlae. And that's really, like, from this whole conversation, that's what it comes down to, right? Like, you continuing to do that,
yeah.
Which is awesome, man. So you go to Arizona, and what changed right away? Because like, you had that instant change when you went from Warwick to New York City, right? And then when you went from New York City back to Warwick, right? You had another change, right? So what was that instant change when you went from your hometown across the country in December, West Coast to Arizona, in a proximity to a lot of people? Like, what was that change for you?
So I'll never forget it, right? I got a taxi right outside after I got my bag, and just like showing up to a place that I didn't even know, right? Like, my family always asked me, and like, I'm not keen on sharing locations and all this other stuff. And they asked me, like, where are you going? Where, like, do you have any pictures? No. I'm going, I pulled up, I'm like, this is a surprise to me. It's the first time seeing it. Oh, yeah. Like, this is my spot, right? I go in and I set up, and immediately I have access to the gym. I have access to everything that I want through there. What I realized is I'm 6'3", and this RV is small, right? This RV is small, and it started to get me to realize, like, how grateful I am, right? Even having a roof over my head and things of that nature, right? Because that thing's uncomfortable, bro. I didn't want to take showers there.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to I didn't want to do a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I really was grateful for. I also started to feel it was something weird. I started to feel distance from my family just physically, like through that distance. And that's something that I've never felt. And I learned a lot because I was in a dark place sometimes in that RV.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot. Like there isn't any solutions without problems. So that was like a major catapult for me. It was also a big change for me in switching positions, right? Like not doing the sales anymore, taking a step back from there because I was 1 foot in on the sales and 1 foot in on creating content for other people.
And that never works out.
Never works out. And from there, right, like a new business is formed in October. And yeah, man, I mean, that's...
So let's stop. Let me stop you there, right? So you said that, you know, when you're in that place, right, it starts giving you like, yo, you're 6'3", you're in this RV. It's not the most comfortable thing for you, but you're still grateful for what you have, being able to have, you know, a roof over your head. And I remember like calling you some nights, you're like, bro, I'm freezing, dude. It's like no propane. Arizona is hot in the day, but it gets cold, man. It's the desert. It gets cold at nighttime. So I remember he's like, bro, I got sweatshirt, I got sweatpants on, I got blankets on. Like he's like, I'm just cracking up, right? Like I'm like, hey man, embrace the suck, right? But
for sure.
But no, dude. But being able to see the light in that, but then it did start to take a toll on you because, you know, I know, but like, you know, you like you just mentioned that you started to go, like you started to have some like thermals. And what do you think caused that, right? Because we get in ruts and not every day is going to be 70 and sunny, right? Like I always say, but there's some times where like you really are just like, it's like, you think like it's pouring out and it's like, bro, it's just drizzling.
Yeah.
You know,
facts.
but you get in these things, bro, where like you can really get in your head. And what do you think caused that?
I think what caused it is I let my environment dictate my brain, right? So like everything was so close, and I'm not claustrophobic, but you guys get the psychology of it all, right? Is like, then your thoughts start to enclose, right? Everything's enclosed. Like I'm working, and that's my biggest thing, right? Is I have a desktop where I work on, right? And you guys know that a desktop you can't transport it like a laptop. Yeah. So I'm stuck there. I'm stuck. That's what my brain's telling me is I'm stuck. When I'm stuck, I go into isolation. Yeah. Like everyone that was super important to me was trying to reach me, and I didn't want to be reached, right? And now looking back on it, you can see how selfish that is for me to do that. But there was just one thing, right? Is shout out to Logan Manzanera is I'm living on his property, right? Like the RV's on his property. He is the landlord, and he's in the sub-2 community, and that's the reason I got down there in the first place. Yeah. Through that connection with Daryl. And I remember him just showing up at my door, and we had like a really deep conversation, like a really good conversation about it. And from there, it was just like, that's all I needed. I needed a conversation, but I wasn't ready to have that conversation until someone showed up at my door. Right.
And you don't have to go into the whole thing, right? I'm not going to ask you to do that, but what was the biggest thing from that talk with Logan? What was the biggest thing the biggest nugget that you took from that conversation, that tough conversation that you had with him?
So many nuggets, bro. But I think it was just like, think long term. It was like, start to think long term. It's like, he's 33. Like, if I continually just show up every day, at my age right now, like with the
what's stopping you?
Yeah, what's gonna, same thing like Kevin Cho said, right? What's stopping me? If I continue to show up, and it doesn't need to be like, I don't need to start lifting like freaking 100 dumbbells every day. Like just show up to the gym, do what you have to get done, and you know, think long term. Not everything needs to be like you're a success overnight. And with content, that's how my brain sort of feels sometimes. Is like there's so many what ifs looking back on my life, right? If I stuck with certain things, and now it's just like, okay, if you stick to something for the next 90 days, do you think that you will be a success? The answer is yes.
And instant gratification is just such a powerful thing where it gets people just sucked down this drain. And you do like set out a 90-day plan and stack wins every freaking day. Like we talked about this last night, man, and it's like, bro, we just need to show up. We just need to stack wins, right? Because we're going to have, that bad day is going to come. Yeah. That bad day is going to come. How many wins do you have stacked to when that bad day comes, you only got to stack one more win? If I'm stacking 5 wins,